All right, great. Well, welcome everybody to the regularly scheduled monthly commissioner board meeting that was actually rescheduled from last night. So to anybody that's watching live or that will be watching later, just want to apologize for any inconvenience that caused anybody. We had some technical problems right at the beginning that were kind of beyond our control. So we rescheduled the meeting for tonight. It was practically the quickest time we could reschedule it and still give everybody notice to attend. So anyway, apologies on behalf of the board to anybody that was inconvenienced. And we have a new face. He's down at the bottom of my screen. So just for his benefit, maybe we could go around the room and just introduce ourselves. And Eric, I'm talking about you. You're at the bottom of my screen. So we'll introduce ourselves so you know who's who in the zoo here. I'm Mark Land, one of the commissioners, and I have the opportunity to chair the meetings.
Pleasure to meet you, Mark.
You too.
I'm Harry Andrews.
I'm Chris Parks.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Harry.
Hi.
Oh, you're muted, Commissioner Cooley.
And I'm Steve Cooley, the third commissioner. Nice to meet you, Eric.
Nice to meet you too. Nice to meet you all. As you know, I am Joe Quinn's son. I've been working with Joe. This is my 8th year as an attorney, and I've been absorbing quite a lot from him. So it's good to be here tonight.
A lot of abuse.
Uh-huh.
I've been absorbing a lot from Joe as much as I can in the few short months that I've had the pleasure of working with him too. So yeah, and for all of you fiscally conscious commissioners out there, even though we have two highly qualified and respected attorneys here with us tonight, we're getting two for the price of one. So no worries there.
That's right.
All right. Well, I guess obviously we've got a quorum, and our meeting was called to order at 5:30. So now that we've taken care of some of those preliminary housekeeping items, Chris, would you go through the preamble there and just for the record on the public comment portion?
Mm-hmm. Public comment due to Governor Inslee's proclamation 20-28, District 4 is prohibited from providing a location for the public to attend this meeting. Members of the public will be able to hear the entire meeting via Zoom meeting. And the next item would be the consent agenda.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so if under the consent agenda, that includes the meeting minutes from the October 14th regular board meeting, staff reports, financial reports, vouchers, the District 4 direct payroll 6390.83 and District 4 expense voucher 700712. Unless anybody needs to pull anything out of there and highlight it or talk about it, which would be perfectly okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda that all the commissioners were provided ahead of time and have had a chance to review.
So moved.
And I second that.
It was moved and seconded that the consent agenda be approved. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item of business is unfinished business. And we've got a couple of things on there. Why don't we take them in the order that they're printed. The levy lid lift November election. We all know the results of that. Did anybody want to dive into that any deeper?
I make a comment on that. If
Yeah.
you remember when we were first discussing forming an RFA, we talked about $1.45, we talked about different numbers, and everybody set upon $1.45. And if you remember, there was a quiet voice out of the woods that said, no, the voters will not approve that. And they disregarded that little quiet voice, and you see what happens. My recommendation would be, when it comes to the RFA, we're going to have to do away with that $1.45, or it will also not pass. That's all I have.
Yeah. Well, I can't say that I disagree with anything you just said, Harry, and I'm actually going to make myself a little note here under new business. I'm going to want to add a quick discussion on RFA versus merger. And maybe we can, when we get to that, those in the know can give us a merger 101 lesson. Because you're absolutely right, Harry. 60-40 no in both districts was a pretty strong message. Whether it was the way we attempted to educate our customers, or if it was the rate of increase, or a combination of all of that, I don't know. But we definitely need to regroup beginning of next year. So anybody else have anything on the November election results?
If I could just offer my humble 2 cents. Commissioner Andrews, I agree with you. I think we've now seen, we rolled the dice at 145 twice, and we can see that the people don't want that. I think we need to scale back the improvements we want to make to the fire service in our district. The consumer or the customer doesn't seem to want to have that level of service. I think some other things that were pretty telling were to go from a couple percent off of a yes vote in August to go to 10% off in November. The tax assessments coming out 3 weeks, or property tax assessments coming out 3 weeks prior to the election didn't help. 2 years in a row of 20+% increases in people's residences. Private property tax certainly didn't help. And I found it really interesting. None of this, Commissioner Andrews, none of this is an excuse. These are just things that I'm Monday morning quarterbacking after watching the election. The other thing that was shocking to me was that District 14 up in the Sumas area, they also turned down their levy lid lift, and that was really telling to me to see the old school style of really volunteer centric district with a long-term chief that's beloved, and to see that get turned down. I just think that there's no that in rural areas like ours that are mainly conservative, there's no stomach for more tax, and especially no tax that goes to the general fund. I think if we would have done small bonds for very specific items, we might have had a different outcome. I think we've all learned a lot from this, but I do think you're right. I think that trying to do something large like we did before is a non-starter, and frankly, it's a complete waste of money.
Thanks. Steve?
Yeah, well put, all three of you. There's really not much more that I could say about the failure of the levy. But this too, I'm just going to say it out loud during the meeting, that we've learned our lesson as far as we really need to, once we decide whether a merger or an RFA is the best way to go, we need to do a really good job educating the public on why that will benefit them, in terms of if we save money or whatever the benefits are. We need to do a really good job of showing them why we make whatever recommendation we're going to make. So
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else on that before we transition to the 2022 budget process?
I'd like to make a comment about the company that once again failed to send the postcard out when they said they were. The ballot themselves came out on Friday. When I went around to my neighborhood, most of the people vote right away when they get the ballot. We did not get our postcard, which I think is an excellent postcard, by the way, until Monday. I got mine at 6 p.m. on Monday. And here we go again. Same company, same result. And I screamed and yelled the last time that this happened. And they want to sit and send us a big bill for that again. That's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, no,
just
you're exactly right. I was in the similar position. My card didn't come until a couple of days after my ballot. Since then, I did hear a few observations. I don't know if it was how reliable it is, but I heard a couple of people mention that the post office, due to post office things and the way they process that type of mail, had a lot to do with the delay, whether that's legitimate or not, reasonable or not, I don't know, but that's what I've heard. Steve, you've got your hand up. Did you have something on this as well?
No, I'm sorry. I just forgot to take it down from the last time.
Okay,
So, no,
no,
you're doing
fair
great.
enough, fair enough. How about Jason? You had
What another thing we've discovered is that if you pay first class mail, it'll go as first class mail, and it's sorted in Everett. We paid junk mail prices, basically, media mail, whatever term the post office uses, and it goes to the Seattle Central Sorting Facility. District 21's came on that same Monday, and it turns out it's the post office. They decided to send it further south than everything else went. So another lesson learned. We had no clue that's how that worked. It would have cost 2/3 again to send it, first class, or, put a stamp on everything, so it's just, the stars were aligned against us. There's no excuse. That's just what happened.
Yeah, and I'd like to think, that a 20% swing in votes, would not rest necessarily on the timing of the mailer, or a 10% swing, I guess, however you're doing the math. But I guess we'll never know.
I wonder if it's possible to use the same company that publishes and mails out the ballots to mail out our postcard. Of course, the price differential, I don't know what they paid for the ballot, whether it's first class or what, but that's just an idea, and it's going to be very important come a vote on the RFA.
Right.
And we shouldn't take that lightly. Because the postcard itself, I thought, was excellent. It described all of our needs in good taste, and it was well done. But yet, if the people that get it have already voted, what's the sense of it? That's all.
Yeah. All right. I think we've beat that one enough. Unless there's any objection, let's move to the budget process. I'm not sure. I guess. All right. I don't have it in my packet. It's in another email, but I guess I can tee it up with. Actually, I won't. I'm going to try to do more facilitating and less talking. Jason, I
can-
had emailed you basically a request on what your, best good faith effort would be on the cost of the contract, the upcoming contract. And you responded with that. I want to say it was around 2.3 million. And then Chris has worked up what our 2022 revenue anticipated projected would be. And you have too. And I think both of you are pretty close to 2 million, which leaves us, by my lightning calculations, it was a little over $300,000 short. So anyway, that's how I'll frame it. Jason, you want to talk at all about where things are with you, and then maybe I'll probably ask, Chris for some input as well.
Certainly. Yep. So yes, I replied and I sent it to all three commissioners and Chris as well. And I, using the tax book, I estimated revenues for D4 to be just over $1.9 million. So $1,978,635. That's combined both the fire and EMS levies. Chris had the documents from the treasurer's or from the assessor's office, and I had access to those too. Didn't use them. I used the tax book instead. I sat down with both Commissioner Land and Commissioner Ansel and went through the D4 or D21 budget, and using the 25% breakout, which is what we've done in the past, and keeping in mind, the call volumes, the area covered, and just what we've been doing for 10 or 11 years now. The D4 payment for services is $301,633. So $2,301,633. That is a 6.31% increase over 2021. I'd ask you to keep in mind that we have a contractual wage increase with our bargaining unit. It's the cost of living maxed at 3% plus 2, which turns out to be 5, which is a little bit less than the actual cost of living. A 1% increase in our medical benefits, an increase in liability and auto assurance. They did it wonky, but in several factors it's 17%. In other places it stayed pretty flat, as well as I did budget increased amounts for natural gas and electricity, because in reading the news, I see that both Cascade Natural Gas and PSE have applied for some rather sharp rate increases. That's with that does include the capital expenses for the painting of stations 12, both the A and B building, which is sorely needed and was pointed out by a couple commissioners that needs to happen. So other than that, it's a bare bones budget. So no tenders, no engines, nothing fancy next year. I did show to Commissioner Land and to Commissioner Ansel that I had talked in previous board meetings about building two budgets. So one with the passage of the levy, one without. And Commissioner Land, if you speak up, if you saw so, but I showed the cost of compensation for, I picked a random firefighter, showed him the cost of compensation in this year's budget, so without the levy raise. And then I went to my budget that I was building with, had we got the levy. The cost of compensation for firefighters doesn't change, it's the same. All the expenditures were in capital, and putting those capital budgets side by side, Commissioner Lamb was able to see what kind of things were cut out. Apparatus, just a ton of really catching up on infrastructure and building maintenance type things. So it's both 21 and 4. We're looking at bare bones budgets, keeps everybody employed, no big capital expenses, and it pays for our contractual wage increases. So
Yeah,
That's,
thank
that's kind of the
you.
down and dirty.
Yeah. Well, no, thanks for that summary. And yeah, just for Steve and Harry's benefit, I was, I guess I wanted to be a little bit proactive and get up there a couple of weeks ago, and go through it. Because I was afraid, like probably the rest of you, that we would, there was a good chance we were going to be in this situation, and I guess I wanted to have already seen the different line items, and I guess I can tell you from my perspective and my conversations with Jason, and Bruce as well, I was not able to find a way or reasonably articulate that I noticed anything unreasonably high or inflated or padded. I mean, there was really none of that. And when he says it's a bare bones budget, I believe that. And he and his staff have gone to a lot of work to come up with it. District 21 is in a similar financial constraint as we are. So yeah, anyway, that's my take on it. I don't know. I don't have any line items, categories, or anything that I could suggest or I would go after saying, no, you could cut this, and or even estimating the cost of the contract. I mean, it's the services that our customers are getting with old equipment, and labor's the cost that is big, and there's really not a lot we can do about that. So Harry or Steve, do you have any questions, comments, or anything that you wanted to, I don't know, start kicking around as conversation about this?
The only thing I can say about that, I realize that we have to go to a bare bones budget. However, we must be careful not to do things that would involve the public seeing things. Like if we painted the firehouse right now, and they'd all come back and say, well, where did they get the money to do that if we didn't give them the $1.45? Things like that. We have to be careful not to expend on things that are so visible we're going to get a contest from the public, keeping in mind that we have to provide another vote when we do the RFA. So that's all I have.
I get it. We're getting to the point with Station 12 where we're in danger of destroying the station if we don't do something to. That's really been my big frustration, Commissioner Andrews, with District 21, is the amount of deferred maintenance that is now causing catastrophic failures of systems, of roofs, of electrical systems, of walls, I learned this week we had more flooding in another District 21 station because we've got poor drainage. It's been known about, and the can's been kicked down the road, and now we've got a big mess. And I've got a station that's out of service. So I just can't bring myself to defer much more maintenance on any of our buildings. But most notably, that's a beautiful station that the public paid a lot of money for. And we've got to keep that. 61 in Blaine is another one that's going to get, that's pretty much the building that's going to get some exterior treatment. So 12 and 61 are both going to get, they got to get taken care of. Otherwise we're going to end up paying more in the long run for, but I also wanted to point out, just for Mr. Quinn or the Quinns, this does cut out election costs, or all District 21 election costs. There's no payment to District 4 into those funds. Audit fees, all the things that are district centric or, that the District 4 can't pay into, those were all cut out of that District 4 payment. So I did take note of things that were not paid for by District 4 in the past. I moved those same things were sequestered from the District 4 payment.
Yes, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of comments. I think Commissioner Andrews has a good point, definitely about perceptions by the public. However, I definitely agree about the concerns about deferring maintenance further than we already have, particularly with Station 12's paint job. So I think the compromise might be that we, again, I go back to, we really need to give the public every opportunity to know what we're doing. And so perhaps we can look at on our websites, on everything else, any other way we have to get the word out that we are operating under a much smaller budget, but we had to do these very few things to keep our physical plants in decent shape from falling down. I too talked with the chief about the budget, and I saw both of his budgets that he prepared, one if the levy passed and one that if it didn't. And that's where all of the cuts came from, was the most of the maintenance that needs to be done and the capital improvements that need to be done to keep our physical plants and our trucks functioning, except for a very few things. I think if my memory serves, there was just 2 paint jobs, or I remember the District 4 one, of course, but I believe his budget also deferred similar things up in District 21. So while I definitely appreciate Commissioner Andrews' sentiments there, I think we need to find a way to educate the public as best we can and get those needed maintenance items taken care of. So.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Steve, for, taking the time to essentially kind of do, what I did similarly, and kind of dive a little bit deeper into the budget before this meeting. I guess I would ask you, did you, Steve, did you notice anything in there that, seemed anything other than, bare bones, or where there would have been opportunities to cut, that maybe I didn't see?
The short answer is no. I not only was the chief there, but the person who helps him prepare the budget was there, and I got thorough explanations when I asked questions to all of the questions that I had about the budget. And no, I would echo what you said, that that based on my review of both budgets, and which includes his projected revenues versus projected needs, I did not. I thought that he prepared a good budget, given that we have now, our levies have not been passed. So, yeah, and kind of what you said earlier, Commissioner Land, I didn't see anything that was like, oh boy, we could cut that, or we could just wait a little bit on that. I think the items that, the only thing really that you could cut would be these maintenance projects that we just can't defer anymore. And I think he made a very reasonable recommendation on which ones we can't defer and which ones, as is obvious in the budget, that we're going to have to defer.
Yeah. Appreciate that input. So Chris, I guess I'd ask if you have, anything that you wanted to contribute, albeit this budget cycle, just I'm sure is and has been and was dramatically different than what you're used to. And I would attribute that to, the board composition here is different than the last time you went through a budget cycle and a budget process. So putting it in that context, I guess, yeah, I would love to hear, your input, your insight, and maybe, or what are we missing?
Yeah, like you mentioned, the process was different for me this year. I did not have a chance to look at the numbers that you and Steve looked at. I'm sure you looked at everything that you could have. And I only prepared the budget from the numbers from the revenue, what I estimate and what I have from the county assessor, and also the expenditures. And like you said, the maintenance is already included in the contract payment. And yeah, maybe we can forward those numbers or that budget just to have it on hand for the state auditor once we have our audit, when he is asking how did this number come about. So I could file it with a budget.
Yeah, and while I'm thinking of it, once we did get that estimated contract cost, you then plugged it into
I did.
our worksheet.
Yep.
And then I noticed, and of course, that would have left us with a little over a $300,000 deficit, of course,
Yep.
in the red. And then what I think I saw you do is you transferred a little over $300,000 from one of our reserve funds
Exactly.
to essentially zero out the budget. And I guess my question would be that kind of a significant move, I would suggest, would probably be a board's decision to do.
Yeah, you will see the budget next Monday when you approve the budget. And then you approve that I will transfer the money over from reserve to expense if needed.
Yeah. I mean, we do have reserves, fortunately,
Yes.
probably due to Commissioner Andrews and some of our predecessors' smart, financial decisions. We have some reserves. I guess
some carryover too.
it's a pretty significant move. We have to pay our bills. We have to pay for the contract. But that takes a lot of money out of our rainy day fund. And I guess, I don't know if now's the time to talk about that or if it's at the special meeting next week. I don't know, but it's a big move. Yeah, Steve.
So for my benefit and for anyone that may be watching, can we outline the remaining steps of the budget process for 2022? What's the timeline and when do we have to vote to approve the budget?
We have our public hearing and special meeting next Monday at noon.
Right.
And during that time, we approve our resolutions for the revenue, the 1% increase for the property tax, fire, and for the EMS levy. There are two resolutions that need to be approved for the 1% increase. After that, I believe Chief Evander will give a presentation on the budget. And then we approve two resolutions. One is for the fire and one for the EMS budget, because I have to keep them separate. We have a resolution for the EMS levy and the fire levy. And then the budget is approved in the public hearing next Monday.
So a vote on the two resolutions, but then do we, again, say that again about when we vote to approve the budget?
Next Monday at
Okay,
the public hearing.
at the public hearing. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Okay,
Is
will
there
send out-
any?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I will send out more information tomorrow morning.
okay. How much do we have in reserves?
Currently, I'm going to get the new numbers tomorrow from the county, but on November 10th, and that should be in your current meeting packet that you have in front,
Yeah.
we have $505,057.50 in reserves and $650,330.77 in the expense fund. And of course, that changed in the past few days a little bit. So tomorrow I get the updated numbers.
And I'm
So
noting, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Land.
oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, so was that about $1 million between those two funds?
Yeah, over $1 million.
Okay.
And would you go over the difference between those two funds too, Chris, if you would?
Now, the expense fund is a fund. Yep, the expense fund is a general fund, and we use it to pay all our bills every month.
Right. Okay.
And the reserve fund is a fund that we keep money in there that we don't use for our daily or monthly business.
Okay.
And if I see I have some money left in the expense fund, I can transfer it over. And it also, has interest. So I always move it into investment. So it also collects interest. And I can move it around. I can move it from reserve to expense with a fund transfer.
So one more time, what's the amount in the reserve fund account?
505,057 cents. So a little over $500,000.
Okay. I saw that Joe wanted to say something. I calculated something. I'll be with you.
I had a question about carryover. As you probably all know, you need money in the current expense fund to take you through to about April when the first half taxes come in. So Chris, maybe you can answer that. Approximately how much do you usually need to use between the end of the year and April to carry you through until first half taxes come in? Because you'll be spending some of that 650,000 on that.
I mean, we need 25% of the contract payment from to District 21 in January. I haven't calculated that number out. And then some expenses and payroll until April.
So you need it all?
I don't know if I need it all. I haven't done that. Let me just see if I can get to my calculator real quick here.
So I just really quickly calculated the.
Oh, you did? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, 575,973 will be the quarterly payment.
Yep. And we will still collect taxes. You know, this is just the number in November 10th. We still collected all and money until the end of December.
Oh, so you're still getting, you're still getting second half taxes.
We're still getting taxes for property tax and EMS until the end of the year.
Sure.
So I think it will be okay.
Okay. If I did my math right, I just did a little bit of calculating here. So Chris gave us the total amount that's in the reserve fund. And I've got the budget that she prepared in front of me here, and it's actually $373,000 that she's recommending we transfer. So that's right at real close to 75% of our reserve fund that we'd be spending. So just to keep that in perspective, that's how much we're transferring out if we decide to do that. So the other thing, just one more comment from me about the budget. I want to pay Chris the same courtesy that I did to the chief, in that I'd like to sit down with her before these meetings next week and go over her budget like I did with the chief. So just so the other commissioners know, I plan to do that.
Great.
If Ms. Park is available.
Yep, I'm in the office tomorrow and on Friday. Just let me know.
Great.
Yeah, super. Okay. Anything that we need to do on the budget or the process or anything, I guess, before next Monday's public hearing and special meeting? I just want to make sure our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. All right, doesn't sound like it. Anything else on the budget process up to this point?
Nothing else for
Okay.
me.
Harry?
No, the only, I kept coming back in my mind about, the importance that the chief brought out, that we have to maintain our stations, and that includes paint jobs and things like that. I agree with him wholeheartedly. So I was thinking that possibly we can put some thought between now and our December meeting of different ways that we could finance the painting that we need. Just an idea. If we all start thinking about it and come up with an idea or two of how to finance this so we can accomplish that. That's all I have on that.
How much is the painting project estimated to cost, Jason, or what do you have budgeted for it?
Let's see, what do I have budgeted for it? I think I budgeted.
I can only make so many cookies.
I budgeted 35K to paint both buildings at 35,000, but to paint both buildings at Station 12.
Okay.
That's a lot of cookies.
It's a lot of cookies.
Yeah, it is. And lemonade.
Not as many as a fire engine, though. I've been trying to figure out how many cookies that'll take too.
Well, rest
Okay.
assured, I know I'll be racking my brain trying to figure out any other way to do this. So part of my reason to meet with Chris.
Any other unfinished business? Okay, I must have the old agenda because I know we put an executive session in the meeting tonight, and for the life of me, I can't remember if that's
next.
It's
You
next.
got
That's
it, you got
next.
it right. Yep.
Okay, great. So, Chris, would you just maybe read,
Yep.
just for the record, the explanation and justification for the executive session?
Absolutely. Executive session per RCW 4230-110-1, I think that's I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency.
Okay, thank you. So I would estimate that this would take approximately 30 minutes. We won't take any action in executive session, and I would invite the commissioners and the Quins. Jason and Chris, my apologies, but you'll need to wait. So Jason, how do we find a private room? Do you have that set up?
Yep. I'll put you in a breakout room here.
Okay. So Eric and Joe, please join us, and we will see everybody back shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You should get an offer to join the room. There you go.
All right, I'll text Jason real quick, let him, oh,
Here I
maybe he
am.
is coming. All right, Jason, we're back. Chris, are you there? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I didn't check, it was my fault. I didn't check the time that we left and when we've, was it about 30 minutes?
It was at 6:13 and executive session 30 minutes would be 6:43.
Okay, so we're pretty close. Somebody a lot smarter than me was keeping track of the time in the executive session, so appreciate that, Joe. All right, well, we're back in the public meeting. We didn't take any action in executive session. The next item is new business. And I have on there, Commissioner Cooley will hold Fire Commissioner position 2 starting on 11/23.
Hey,
Chris, this is a lot. Yeah, congratulations.
thank you, and to you as well.
Oh yeah, right. I ran for Harry's spot because Harry is gonna retire and deserve that long-awaited retirement from the board. Thank you for all your years of service, Harry. How many years were you on the board?
12,
Well,
I
I've
believe.
been on 2 different boards, but I've been in the fire service since 2002.
It's like 29 years. No, that's wrong.
I think 12 was District 4,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yep.
Well, thank you for your many, many years of valuable service and all your wisdom and input. I know I've learned a lot from you in the short time I've been doing this. Commissioner appointment for position 3 from November 23rd to December 31st. Who wants to drive that conversation?
Well, maybe Chris, could you explain why we need to do this, just for anybody that might be watching?
Yeah, the appointment for the current position that Commissioner Land is filling will expire. And therefore, if you're moving to a different position, at position 2, position 3 is vacant. So it's either only 2 commissioners until January 1st, or you could appoint somebody for position 3 from 11/23 to 12/31. It's
Yeah, and I've mentioned that for a couple of meetings in a row now, just to kind of get you guys to think about it, because obviously, I don't want there to be any appearance of a conflict here. So I don't really want to be part of that. You guys can do what you want to do as far as appointment goes. But it seems like time is of the essence. And if you want to talk about it now, and I don't know if you want to make a decision, but again, I kind of want to step back from that a little bit.
Well, I'm happy to reappoint you to that position, or to appoint you to that position. I think that would be my recommendation. Because like you said, we need to get that done, and we need to have your experience already on the board. I don't see why we would vote to lose that. So that's kind of where I stand, unless there's other discussion.
If that's in the form of a motion, I'll second that.
Well, I was giving you the opportunity to discuss that, Mr. Andrews, but yeah, we can discuss it after you make the motion. So consider that I made the motion. That's fine.
okay.
And then,
So, okay, Joe, would there be any conflict of interest if I continued to act as chair and on that motion and put it to a vote? Because essentially it was moved and seconded that they appoint me to fill that short bridge term until I'm in office on January 1st. Does somebody else need to lead that?
I don't think I don't think it matters that much, but it'd be preferable if you didn't vote on your own appointment.
Got it. Okay. So it was moved and seconded that I would be appointed for that, to fill the bridge of that term from the November 23rd to December 31st. Is there any other discussion on that?
None here.
None from me.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I would abstain. Chris, if you could just note for the minutes that I abstained from that vote, but
Yep.
the motion carried. Well,
Yes.
thank you. I guess I don't get a 5-week vacation at the end of the year.
Sorry.
Oh, hey. Okay. 2022 board meeting days. We're all busy. We've all got, things going on, and I just wanted to throw it out for discussion. Probably less for Harry, but, Steve, I don't know what your schedule is like. Do these noon meetings during the weekday, or is that preferred, or do you prefer, an after work kind of a meeting? I'm off on Mondays all day. It's one of my days off. So I try to get a lot of my volunteer work done on Mondays. I just wanted to throw it out there. It seemed like a good time to, if we were going to change our schedule, maybe now talking about it might be a good idea.
Yeah, I need to, and I can do that right now if you want. It might just take me a second, but my only constraint would be we're going back to hybrid classes. At least that's the current plan at Whatcom Community College. So I will have some in-person time. Right now it's a piece of cake because I set the schedule for the class, but we're going back to a hybrid model where I will be in class sometimes. So that would be the only firm commitment I couldn't change.
Okay.
And I think I have that schedule already. Do we need
Oh,
to?
it's okay. We don't.
Today? Okay.
No, we don't. No, not at all. I'm
Okay.
just kicking it out there to start thinking about, if we have a preference, probably at our December meeting, I would think we would need to kind of make some kind of official calendar meeting announcement.
Mhm.
Jason,
then
how
I'll
about
know.
you, Jason or Chris? Day of the week, time of the day, are you flexible or no?
I'm pretty flexible, but I just looked at the deadline for the payroll from the county. I got all their dates, and some Mondays, and I believe I emailed you about that, might be holidays. So, but we can move it. So once we start on the calendar next month, we can go through it month by month, and I can tell you when the deadlines are and which ones are holidays. So we can move them around. So Monday would be possible at noon.
Okay.
On my
How about you,
day.
Jason?
I'm exempt, so as long as Mrs. Chief doesn't get mad at me, I can
Yeah.
make just about anything work. Yeah. Whatever works best for you. Meet the needs of the board. So if it's, I wouldn't want to meet much past 5:30 p.m. But evenings are okay. Once a month. But
Yeah.
Whatever works for you, gentlemen.
Yeah, today was a little bit unusual, obviously, because of our technical problems yesterday. I only because I don't have other, commitments on Mondays is kind of why I would lean maybe toward a Monday regularly scheduled. But if it falls on a holiday, if we would then adjust it to the preceding or the following Monday after that,
Mhm.
I don't know. But Steve, just kind of give it some thought. And if there's some strong calendar commitments, that would prevent a Monday during the day, since we don't want to get too much into the evenings for everybody else, just see if it would work. And if not, what plan B would be.
And my only other comment would be, I wish there was a way we could ask our constituents what time they would like us to meet and be more likely to watch. But if anyone is watching, I suppose they could contact us and let us know what their recommendation is if there's people out there that really feel like a certain time of the day would be better for them to, if they actually watch these meetings.
Mhm.
But yeah, other than that, I will, I'll get smart on my schedule for next quarter at the college and be ready.
But I
to
believe the
discuss that.
meetings are also recorded, so if somebody would like to watch
Of
it,
course,
it's also an option.
of course, but that, of course, they,
I know, but I like
Yeah.
the way you're thinking, Steve. It just, yeah, it's a good reminder, being responsive,
Yeah.
more responsive and accessible to the people that we're serving. So, good point.
if we get.
All right, well, we'll revisit that next meeting. I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Steve?
Just finishing
Okay.
up the.
All right, so under new business, I earlier in the meeting, I mentioned I made a little note here, just because I guess the way the last two levies have gone, we don't know that the RFA would be even successfully approved by the voters. If we got to the point where they would approve it, hopefully we can work towards that. But there's this other term that I've heard been starting to be kicked around, is merging with District 21 as opposed to the RFA process. So Joe, you and I had a brief discussion earlier in the week about that. It was a great explanation, and just for the benefit of everybody else here, would you give us maybe the Reader's Digest version again? And since I think there's a good chance that this might, be on the table here in the next couple of months when we're talking to 21, and just so that we have a little bit of a basis to go on.
Right, Mark. You called it merger versus RFA 101. Kind of a condensed version is fine. I noticed when Eric signed off a little while ago to go take care of the baby, he said something like he'd love to spearhead that education effort on the differences between the two. So I'll just do a condensed version now, but we could do a lot more education on the details. When I talked to you, Mark, I mentioned that I've been involved in a lot of mergers since the late 80s. Pierce County has had a slew of mergers of fire districts. We haven't really gone the RFA route in Pierce County, but mergers have been on the table for a long time, and a lot have been successful. The difference under this statute is that the big difference is that you petition for merger. The merging district usually is the smaller district, not always, but almost always. And they're called the merging district, and the one that survives is called the merger district. When you get to the end of the process, the merging district is dissolved and all of its assets are transferred to the merger district. But one wrinkle that I mentioned to Mark, which I think he was kind of surprised at, was that in a merger, unlike an RFA, only the voters of the merging district get to vote. So if you petitioned to merge into District 21, with them being the merger district, your citizens would get to vote on whether they want to merge into 21, but their citizens would not get to vote on whether they want to accept you, so to speak. And that's just the way it works by statute. It's totally different in an annexation. When a city annexes to a fire district, which I've also done a lot of, it's really two elections, because it has to be approved by the voters of both the city that wants to annex to the fire district and the voters of the fire district voting as to whether they want to accept them. And it has to pass majority vote in both jurisdictions in order to be approved. Whereas in your case, it would be something that you would decide yourselves, do we want to ask? Do we want to ask to petition to merge into 21 and go away? It's a big ask in a way, but it happens all the time in Washington. Like I say, I've probably been involved in at least a dozen of them, maybe as many as 20 from some of these small districts I've forgotten. And it starts with a petition for merger where you set out any conditions, any terms and conditions that you'd like to see them accept as part of the merger. And then their board either concurs with the petition or it doesn't. And if they concur, they send it back to you and say, okay, you pass a resolution calling for a special election of merger in your district. And so that starts taking place, but you also have to comply with the Boundary Review Board law. I won't go into great detail about that, but usually there's a State Environmental Policy Act, a determination of non-significance, that just changing the lines, kind of erasing the boundary lines and changing the way it's the governance structure, it doesn't really affect the environment. So you get a DNS, a determination of non-significance is done by you basically, because the Boundary Review Board won't do it. And then you go through the BRB process. I'm sure that Whatcom County has a Boundary Review Board and they won't care. But if there's an objection, somebody can object to it. And if not, it gets automatically approved in 120 days. If nobody invokes jurisdiction, you just go right through it fast. So that gets done, and then the voters get to vote. And then, like I said, only the voters of District 4 would get to vote if they agree with the commissioners that they want to merge into District 21. Simple majority, easy peasy, all done. You pick a date. You basically have to figure that out in advance. When do you want this to be effective? But it can be done fairly quickly. There's a law, RCW 8409030, dictates a deadline by which you have to fix boundaries or you can't levy taxes. So the merger district wouldn't levy taxes as the merger district unless you get it done by the deadline, which is, in this case, it would be, I think it's October. And so you'd have to do it at the right time of the year and have the election at the right time of year, probably at the primary, the August primary. But it's basically a policy decision for you folks to say, do we want to do that as opposed to the more arduous process, the more difficult process, as you've sort of seen already, of forming a regional fire authority. And so that's the Reader's Digest version. I have all the forms, petitions, resolutions to concur, resolutions to call elections. I've got all those and can outline the two-track process. The BRB process is going on just as the election process is going on at the same time, basically. So that's a short capsule sketch of how merger would work if you want to consider it. I think it's simpler. I wondered in the first place when you were talking RFA a couple months, years ago, I wondered why didn't they consider merger instead? But it wasn't up to me, and I was a very minor player in the process, so I didn't ever push that. But anyway, it's another way of combining, and sometimes mergers fall apart because you have people that don't want to give up their name, like District 4 name or whatever they might call the fire department. And so there are hangups that can occur where mergers don't go through. But usually there's some economies of scale. There's some money saved. There's some reasons to think that, hey, we've been consolidated for years. When we formed Central Pierce, we formed 3 fire districts that merged at the same time. Districts Pierce 6, 7, and 9 all merged at one time in one, well, really 2 big elections because there were 2 petitioners. And it's not that complicated. So that's a quick thumbnail sketch. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Great, thank you.
No questions. Thanks for the summary. That's very helpful.
I think definitely after the levy, now that the election's over, I think a joint meeting between 21 and 4 is in order, so that all of you can hear what Mr. Quinn just said. Just to kind of just 30 seconds to fill in some of the backstory about why we landed on RFA versus merge was the EMS levy that District 4 has. There was some unbelievable, according to the research that was done for us, the EMS levy carried over to District 21. It doesn't just go away when District 4 would merge into District 21. And so that's why we went down the RFA road. And then the other concern, I guess, for us to talk about, for the boards to talk about, is what would our tax levy rate be if we merged, since it would be a conglomeration of what we have today. I know that District 21's has dropped to $1.02 with the new EVs out. So I can only imagine what District 4's has dropped to. The combined levy is going to be lower. It was $1.03 combined last year. Certainly going to be less than that now. So where would that leave us financially? Would we have enough operating funds?
Okay, well, good. That's good to tee that up. Appreciate it, Joe. Just things to think about as we move forward. And yeah, a joint meeting or some sort of a combination of, I don't know what it would look like, if it would just be a group of commissioners from each board meeting, or if
I
we
didn't
should
address
have
that.
a
I
full.
should have addressed that, Mark. If you
Go
did
ahead.
merge, if you did merge, there's a statute that addresses that. And it says that all existing commissioners carry on with the merged board of the merger district. So initially, all District 4 commissioners would become District 21 commissioners automatically. And then the law says that it's reduced by attrition over a period of elections. You have elections every other year in the odd years, and it gets reduced based upon whose term expires. No vacancies are filled, basically, and you reduce to the number that you're supposed to have. And in their case, they have a 5-member board, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
And so it would be reducing from 8 to 5, but based upon how terms expire. They wouldn't be selected, like from District 4 or District 21. They would be based upon term expiration. It's all statutory.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah. Well, yeah, Steve, I mean, the next time you talk to Bruce, see what his thoughts are. I'll do the same. And maybe at some point we have kind of a larger sort of a joint meeting like Jason just mentioned, to kind of see what road we should be trying to go down, what the pros and cons are.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I will do that.
Mr. Quinn, while I got you here, just it is a combined levy rate, correct? If you merge the two districts, they take the two levy rates, and unless on the ballot there's a proposed new levy rate.
No, there's a blending that usually takes place in the case of mergers, I believe. And so one could go up. It might be higher for the people that were in District 4, and it might be a little bit lower for the people that were in District 21. I guess my question is what to do about the EMS levy. When does this EMS levy expire? Is it a 6-year levy that has a lot to go?
No,
Permanent levy.
Pardon me?
It's a permanent levy.
Oh, it's a permanent EMS levy. That's right.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that might
since
be that might be a problem.
How so?
Yeah, well, and since the levy failed, obviously we need to have that EMS levy. Kind of went hand in hand, one or the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, you'd almost have to forego that levy, not levy it. It's like any other tax levy. It's up to the board every year to ask and for the assessor and the county to approve. In other words, make the levy. So theoretically, we'd have to study that a little bit, but theoretically, if you could increase your property tax rate to match theirs, if you could do that to match theirs somehow and eliminate the EMS levy, that would match them up. You need to have sort of a retreat where you discuss the financial possibilities of this, because these kinds of issues have been dealt with before in mergers. We had tremendous financial differences when we made 3 districts into one with Central Pierce. We had a whole day-long retreat just to discuss the financial problems of merging the 3 districts. And I'd talk with Rich Davis and a few other people and see if we could come up with a plan that might mean not levying the EMS levy, even though it's permanent. I mean, it could be done, I think. but it would be unique, that's for sure. And it would take some real thinking. But as part of the merger vote, you could propose terms and conditions along those lines, I think.
Well, that's what this board had committed to doing, would be to just zero out the EMS levy had the levy lid lift, been voted on favorably. Clearly, that's not the case now. But it was, anyway, that's all water under the bridge. I know we're running long. I don't want to cut anybody off though, but just looking at the agenda and the clock. Anything else on that or any other new business? Okay, correspondence, unless something came in the last 24 hours. I'm looking at the old agenda. Do we have anything, Chris?
No, we don't.
Okay. So then the last announcement here, and I think this is still right. The next thing on our calendar would be the public hearing for the revenue and the 2022 budget on November 22nd at 12 noon. And then the next regularly scheduled board meeting would be December 15th at 12 noon. Anything else for the good of the order?
Not for me. Thank you.
Nothing here.
Well, thanks everybody for your time and work that you put into this meeting. I know a lot goes on behind the scenes to help us get our business done. Joe, thank you. Please thank your son. Sorry he had to leave early, but totally understandable. It was nice to see his face. Okay, so we are adjourned until next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.